back, everyone. Today we're going to try to take a deep dive into something I think we can all relate to.
Yeah.
Stakeholder management.
Right.
But we're not just talking about the basics here, right? We're really going deep.
Yeah.
We're looking at the role of emotional intelligence.
Exactly.
All those soft skills that really become crucial when projects get a little bit hairy.
Yeah.
And the reason we're talking about this is a document one of you sent in called Trust-Based Project Stakeholder Management. Mm-hmm. Really interesting stuff.
Yeah, it's an interesting area. And this document kind of focuses on this concept of an emotional bank account, which I think...
Okay, now that's a new one for me.
Yeah, it's a little bit different.
Emotional bank account, I like it already. So what is that exactly? When we talk about managing stakeholders, what does that even mean?
So it's really a metaphor, for the trust and the goodwill that you build with your stakeholders.
Right.
If you think about a real bank account, right? You make deposits, you take withdrawals. So, your positive interactions, your communication, empathy, those are all deposits.
Okay.
Whereas, missteps, broken promises, lack of respect, those are withdrawal.
So you're saying if I'm a good project manager and I make a lot of deposits, being nice, being respectful, I'm building up a reserve of trust I can draw on later.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's exactly right. So when things get tough, you have that reserve to help you navigate disagreements, manage those expectations, recover from mistakes, anything like that.
And we all make mistakes.
Oh, absolutely.
But that's an interesting way to think about it, especially when you're on those politically charged projects.
Yeah.
Where, things can go south pretty quickly.
Exactly.
So that kind of leads to another question. What about situations where the stakeholders, they don't even trust each other?
Yeah.
How do you bridge that as a project manager?
So that's where that individual trust in the project manager becomes super important. Okay. So even if stakeholders might have some conflicting interests, if they trust you, then, you can kind of leverage that to facilitate communication, help find common ground.
So it's almost like you're a mediator in that situation.
Exactly.
Okay.
Kind of like being a mediator, yeah. Making sure that everyone feels heard.
Right.
Understood.
Even if they don't necessarily agree.
Right.
Okay, that's really interesting. It makes me think about, choosing the right communication channels.
Yeah.
And I know the document we're looking at, it kind of points out some potential pitfalls.
Right.
Especially with email.
Oh, yeah. Email can be tough.
Yeah. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So, email's great for documentation, disseminating information. But when you are trying to work through sensitive issues, resolve conflicts, especially in those early stages, it can actually be detrimental.
Really? Why is that? I mean, we all live on email.
It does. It's just, it lacks that nuance.
Oh, okay.
Face-to-face interaction, you see the body language, the tone.
Right.
But email, it's so easy to misinterpret things.
Yeah.
And, things can escalate quickly.
So maybe you pick up the phone or even better, but like you said, have that face-to-face.
Absolutely. Yeah. Those personal interactions, it really shows that you value the relationship. And it helps build trust,
Okay.
Make those deposits in that emotional bank account.
I'm really starting to like this emotional bank account idea. Okay, so we've talked about communication, but let's get into some specifics about those soft skills. Mm-hmm. The document lists, communication, empathy, influence, conflict resolution.
Yeah.
Like, where do we even begin? There's so many.
Yeah, there's a lot, right. Well, I think we can start with influence.
Okay.
Because it's often misunderstood.
Yeah.
A lot of people think it's like manipulation or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's really not, In a project management context, it's really about effectively communicating the value of your project and aligning those individual stakeholder goals with the overall objectives.
So it's more about persuasion?
Exactly.
But ethically?
Yeah, ethically and transparently.
Okay.
You're not trying to trick anyone.
Yeah.
You're using techniques like framing, reciprocity, things like that.
Okay, so framing, what's that?
So framing is basically how you present information,
okay,
in a way that resonates with each stakeholder.
Okay.
So really understanding their values and what's important to them.
Okay.
And then reciprocity is more like creating the sense of obligation by, being helpful, being accommodating, and that can lead to, them being more supportive of your project.
Okay, so it's not just about being likable
No.
or charismatic. There's a real strategy behind it.
Exactly. You gotta understand, human psychology a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, that's really helpful. So then that kind of leads us to another skill, conflict resolution.
Yeah.
Because, let's face it, disagreements, they're going to happen.
Oh, they're inevitable.
Yeah. But how you handle them, that can make or break the project.
Absolutely.
So I'm guessing this is where that emotional bank account really comes in handy.
Big time. Yeah. When you have that foundation of trust, then stakeholders are, more open to your perspective, even if they don't agree with you at first. Right. So you can approach it more as a collaboration, problem-solving exercise.
Not a battle.
Exactly.
Okay, so when a conflict comes up, what's the first step? Where do you even begin?
Well, the first thing is, create a safe space for dialogue.
Okay.
Where you can really have open and honest conversations.
Yeah.
And that might mean, some private conversations where people can express their concerns without feeling judged or pressured.
Right.
So really listening to them, understanding their perspectives, and then trying to find that common ground.
Okay, and that sounds like you really have to navigate things carefully.
You do.
Are there specific techniques that you can use to kind of make those conversations more productive?
Yeah, well, one really effective technique is called reframing.
Reframing.
Yeah. So instead of focusing on the disagreements, right, you try to reframe the conversation in terms of shared goals or objectives.
Okay, so it's like finding that common ground.
Exactly.
Even when it's hard to see at first.
That's right. And you might be surprised how often stakeholders actually are aligned on the big picture.
Yeah.
Even if they have different ideas about how to get there.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
This deep dive is really showing me how important people skills are in project management.
Yeah.
It's not just about the technical stuff. It's not about, just checking things off a list.
Exactly.
It's really about understanding people.
Human dynamics are everything.
Yeah, and building that trust. I'm starting to see why this document, puts so much emphasis on that emotional intelligence. It's not just about being nice.
No.
It's a real strategic advantage.
Absolutely.
And you know what? I think anyone can learn these skills.
That's the best part. They can be developed.
Yeah.
Over time.
With practice.
Exactly.
It's funny. We've gone from spreadsheets and Gantt charts to emotional bank accounts.
I know, right?
It really is all about the people side of things.
Yeah, the human element.
So speaking of psychology, there was something in this document that I thought was really interesting.
Okay.
It's this idea that, a good project manager, they can help stakeholders save face.
Yeah.
When they need to change their position.
Right.
Which I imagine is like a super delicate thing to do.
It is.
How do you approach that? How do you do that without making somebody feel like you're cornering them or embarrassing them?
Well, it really all goes back to that emotional bank account.
Okay.
If you've built those strong relationships.
Right.
Then stakeholders are more likely to be open to your guidance,
Yeah.
Even when it involves admitting that they were wrong.
So it's about creating that space where people feel safe.
Exactly.
To say, hey, you know what? I changed my mind.
Exactly. Yeah. And, it starts with acknowledging their initial position.
Okay.
Showing them that you understand their perspective, you respect their reasoning.
Even if you don't agree with it.
Even if you don't agree with their conclusion, yeah.
Okay, so you're validating their feelings.
Yeah.
But not necessarily their logic.
Right, that's a good way to put it, yeah. And then once they feel heard and understood,
Yeah.
then you can start to kind of gently introduce new information or different perspective.
But how do you make sure it doesn't come across as like, I told you so?
Right. Well, sometimes it can be helpful to use storytelling.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, instead of directly contradicting them,
okay,
maybe you share a case study or an anecdote that kind of illustrates a different point of view.
Right.
Or you can appeal to their sense of objectivity, remind them that it's a good thing to change your mind.
Yeah.
When new information comes to light.
That makes sense. It's not about forcing them to flip their position.
Exactly.
It's more about nudging them.
It's a process, yeah.
Yeah. And giving them a way to save face.
Yeah. Sometimes, you can kind of provide an exit strategy.
Okay.
Frame the shift as a joint decision. Or like a natural evolution based on new data or insights.
Right.
So they can kind of maintain their credibility within the team.
So really you're saying diplomacy is like a key skill here.
Absolutely, it's essential.
Like a secret weapon.
Yeah, it really is. And, when you handle these situations well, not only does it strengthen your relationships with your stakeholders, but it also kind of creates this culture of open communication and intellectual honesty within the team.
That's really interesting. Okay, so let's get into some of the more, I guess you could say, like, the nitty-gritty challenges that project managers face, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're talking conflicting priorities.
Yeah.
Unrealistic expectations.
Right.
That dreaded resistance to change.
Yeah. That's
how do you tackle those?
So let's start with conflicting priorities, because that can be tricky, right? I think the first step is really clearly defining the objectives and the priorities of the project. Right?
So, like, what's non-negotiable?
Exactly.
Like, what's flexible?
Yeah, what's the wiggle room, you know? And once you have that clarity, then you can really engage stakeholders in a discussion about trade-offs and compromises.
So you're setting expectations from the get-go.
Exactly.
Making sure everybody understands the big picture.
Yeah, and just as importantly, you're listening to them. Yeah. To understand their motivations. What's driving their priorities? What are their concerns? Right. And once you kind of grasp those nuances, then you can start to explore those solutions.
It's like a balancing act between the needs of the individual and the needs of the project.
It is. It's a balancing act, yeah. And then you've got unrealistic expectations, which can be really frustrating. Yeah. And when stakeholders demand the impossible, it's really important to be clear and direct about what's actually feasible.
Yeah. But how do you push back without, damaging the relationship?
So it's about being assertive. Okay. Not aggressive.
Right.
You back up your statements with data. Mm-hmm. And you offer alternative solutions, right? So maybe you propose a phased approach, or you suggest some compromises that still meet their needs to some degree. Okay. The key is to be transparent. Yeah. Collaborative.
So you're still a problem solver.
Exactly. And then finally, there's resistance to change.
Right, the big one.
The elephant in the room, right. And it's human nature to resist change. Yeah. Especially when it's disruptive. Yeah. It's scary.
Absolutely.
So communication is key here. Okay. Clearly explain why the change is happening, what are the benefits, right? What are the concerns, and address them directly. Yeah. But even more importantly, get them involved from the very beginning. Okay. Give them a voice, get their input, acknowledge their anxieties,
So make them feel like they're part of the solution.
Exactly.
Not just, having the solution forced upon them.
Exactly. Yeah. And when people feel heard and empowered, they're much more likely to get on board with the change.
That makes sense.
And don't forget to celebrate those small wins.
Oh, that's a good one, yeah. Positive reinforcement.
It goes a long way.
Keeps people motivated.
Absolutely.
So managing resistance to change, it's really about being a good communicator.
It is.
A patient guide, as much as it is about being a decisive leader.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
You know what? I'm kind of amazed at how all of these soft skills, they have such a big impact on the hard realities of a project, right?
Absolutely.
You've got deadlines, deliverables.
It really shows you how much projects are driven by people.
Yeah.
It's all about those human dynamics.
Well, this has been a really eye-opening deep dive.
Yeah, it has.
I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of this document, but I can already see how powerful these strategies can be.
Yeah, and remember, this is a journey, not a destination.
That's a good point, yeah.
The more we practice these skills, the better we become as project managers, but also as people,
As human beings.
Exactly.
It's amazing how all these things connect back to that idea of the emotional bank account.
Yeah.
We keep coming back to it.
It really is a central theme here, isn't it?
It is. So I'm curious, are there any common misconceptions?
Oh, yeah.
About trust-based stakeholder management? Or pitfalls that project managers should watch out for?
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that it's all about being nice.
Oh, interesting.
Just being agreeable all the time.
Right.
But that's not really true. Okay. Sometimes you need to be assertive.
Right.
To push back on those unrealistic expectations, or to, deliver bad news.
So it's not about being a pushover.
Exactly. It's about being authentic, being transparent, even when the message is tough.
I like that. Okay, so what about other pitfalls?
Well, another one is thinking that building trust is just a one-time thing.
Oh, okay. Check it off the list.
Yeah, you just do it once and you're done. But it's an ongoing process. You have to nurture those relationships.
Sure.
You got to keep communicating. You got to demonstrate that you really care about their interests.
It's like a garden, you know?
Yeah.
You plant the seeds, but you still got to water them.
Exactly, yeah. A garden, a relationship, it's all about consistent effort.
That's a great way to put it. So any other pitfalls that we should watch out for?
Let's see. Oh, here's a big one. Focusing too much on the big stakeholders.
Okay.
And forgetting about those maybe smaller or less influential ones.
Oh, yeah.
Because everyone has a role to play.
Right.
You know? Even those who might seem less important can still have a big impact.
So it's about being inclusive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Making sure everyone feels valued.
Right.
And heard.
Yeah, that makes sense. Anything else?
Ooh, one more. And this is a big one. Thinking that this whole trust-based approach makes you look weak.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
You know, or indecisive. But it's actually the opposite.
Okay.
It takes a lot of strength.
Right.
A lot of emotional intelligence to really navigate those relationships.
Yeah.
To guide everyone towards that shared vision.
So it's about being strong and compassionate.
Exactly.
Assertive, but also empathetic.
Yeah. It's a tough balance, but when you get it right,
Powerful.
it can be really powerful. And that brings us back to those soft skills, you know?
Yeah.
They're not just nice to haves, they're essential.
Totally.
If you want to be an effective leader.
Well, this has been a fantastic deep dive.
It has been fun.
I feel like I've learned so much.
Me too.
About, how important those soft skills really are. So
yeah.
For listeners out there, I guess the main takeaway is don't underestimate the power of human connection.
Yeah.
Invest in those relationships.
Yeah.
Cultivate those soft skills. And you know what? Watch your projects thrive.
And don't forget to be present. Be authentic. Be compassionate.
Beautiful. Those are words to live by. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
And to all our listeners out there, happy projecting.